Hi and welcome back to The Books Are Everywhere. So welcome to my July wrap up. It is crazy that it's the end of July. I am filming this on the last day of July, and even though I do want to finish one of these books tonight, I know I'm not going to read another one, so I thought may as well just film this wrap up now. But yeah, I can't believe that it is the end of July. It is crazy. It feels like this month has gone so quick, and it was just like a week ago that I was doing June's wrap up, which is insane to me. I didn't manage to read as many books this month, but I did read 24 in June, so that was an insane amount. But I have still managed to read 14 this month, and only one of them has been a manga, so I am quite happy with how many I have read still, because I read 24 in June, but 5 of them were graphic novels. So I am still happy with the amount I've read, especially because I now have 2 jobs, and my second job started at the end of June, so I wasn't sure how much that would affect my reading. But yeah, I just feel like I'm still doing pretty well, so let's go through what I read in July. The first book I read was the Weathering With You manga, Volume 1, which I absolutely loved. This is the manga that is kind of based on the film Weathering With You, which is by Makoto Shinkai, who also directed Your Name or Kimi no Na wa, and I absolutely love Makoto Shinkai's work. I love anything that he writes or creates, so I have read all of the Your Name manga and read the light novel and read the light novel of this, so I thought let's try the manga as well. I want to carry on with this series. There is only 3 and I really want to carry on with it, but the second one is going for a reprint right now, so I have bought the third one, but I read the first one at the start of the month and I really enjoyed seeing this kind of story in a different light, because this is from the point of view of the main character, so it's kind of looking into his head a bit more instead of looking kind of, from an outside perspective like the film is. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. So this was my first read of July, and I gave this 5 stars. I then read A Full Love Story by Loan Lee, and I absolutely loved this one so much. I read this one mostly on audiobook, but it was so good. I couldn't stop listening to it. I was thinking about this when I wasn't reading it. It was brilliant. It was kind of like a Romeo and Juliet style thing, where there are 2 people who kind of become friends and end up liking each other, but their families own rival pho restaurants that are across the street from each other, and because of that, the families don't want them to be together or don't want them to even know each other. So it's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet style thing, but I really enjoyed it. There was so many different levels to this, and I loved the food and the Vietnamese culture in here as well, and I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. I then picked up The Last Beginning by Lauren James, which feels like it took me so long to read because I was doing buddy reads around it as well. It took me a long time, but I did enjoy this one. This is the sequel to the Next Together story, which is the first book. This is the second book, but this one follows the main characters from the Next Together's daughter 16 years on. So even though it is kind of a series, it is more of a companion novel to the first one, and these are like not dystopian, but kind of set in another world, alternative to our own. It's kind of science fiction based, where they have time travel. And basically, this follows the daughter trying to discover what happened to her parents, which are the main characters of The Next Together. And although this one did read a little bit young for me, and I wasn't entirely sure about the main character all of the time, I did still really enjoy it, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then I did some buddy reads. I buddy read The Great Gatsby with my boyfriend Mark, and this was an interesting one. I read this one twice actually in the month of July. I didn't count that in my kind of wrap up of 14 books, because I read this physically and then I listened to the audiobook basically straight off the back of reading this physically, because it is so short and the audiobook was really short as well, so I just listened to it in a weekend while I was travelling around. And this was a really weird book. I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say I liked the main characters or like I liked things about it. It was just an interesting perspective on New York and society in the 1920s, and I kind of like how it portrayed that and how it looked at that, and kind of the flamboyancy, I don't know if that is a word, but kind of the flamboyancy and the greediness of that kind of time and high society in that time. And I liked how this kind of gave us a window into that world and what some of the people in that high society would have been like. And I just found this a really interesting depiction of that. So yeah, I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I then read All Our Hidden Gifts by Caroline O'Donoghue, and this one I buddy read with my friends from work, Amy and Joe, and I did enjoy this one, but again, it did read a little bit young for me. This one is a YA. It's a very unique YA, actually. It's kind of a contemporary that has magical elements and basically follows a girl. This is set in Ireland as well, by the way, but it follows a girl who finds a tarot deck in her school while she's clearing out this room, and then she ends up giving tarot readings to people. And basically something happens with her ex-best friend. She gives a reading to her and her ex-best friend disappears. This was really interesting. It has some really interesting discussions of gender identity, which I mostly really liked reading about. But yeah, the only thing that really bugged me with this one is the main character was quite young and she read quite young, and also some of the stuff she did made me not really like her as a main character, and I always find that I struggle with books where I can't really sympathise with the main character too much. But it definitely made for an interesting kind of concept for YA, and I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. So I then read Ace of Spades by Faride Abike Imide, and I really liked this one. This is kind of like a dark academia thriller. It is set in a school, and basically there are two pupils who get rumours spread about them around the school by this mystery kind of texter called Aces, and all these texts are going around to the school and they start to realise it's only about these two people. And this one went places that I didn't expect it to go. It kind of had a deep dive into race, which I really liked. It reminded me a lot of Slay, and then it had this like really fast-paced underlying story, but actually used it as a tool to be able to discuss racial divide, which I really thought was important, and I really liked it. I didn't love it all the time. Again, I found both of the main characters a little bit hard to like in this one, especially the female main character, Chi. But there was a lot to like about it. The writing was so fast-paced and I really flew through it. I've already read this one with Alex, but when I did pick it up, I didn't want to put it down. I was finding it really enthralling, and it was definitely a compelling read, and there is a lot of important things discussed in this one. But yeah, sometimes the characters fell a little flat for me, and some of it felt a little bit far-fetched, but other than that, I really loved it and gave it 4.5 stars. So I then read The Furies by Katie Lowe, which was a very odd book. This is another dark academia book, and I absolutely loved the writing in this so much, and the writing is really what made me like it in any way. But this was very dark academia. This basically follows our main character Violet in kind of, I think it's a private school, and there is this kind of group of girls that she falls into that are kind of the popular girls, but there's a lot of kind of hidden stuff within the friendship group, and a lot of it is just very dark and very weird. There is a lot of trigger warnings for this book, including rape and drug use and alcohol use and just general murder and weirdness, and it's just very dark. I would never recommend this one because I don't know who I'd recommend it to, because I wouldn't want to really recommend it to somebody because of how dark it was, and I wouldn't want anyone to go into it unprepared like I did. Especially listening to the audiobook of this like I did, I found that some of this I felt very close to, especially when the narrator was talking about her own experiences, and it was literally right there in my ear. I found that quite difficult to listen to, but I absolutely loved the writing. I loved it so much. It read very kind of classically. It was like a modern classic, but was also very accessible and easy to read and compelling. Just very strange, and I don't know if I'd recommend it to anybody, but I gave it 3.5 stars in the end. I then read Ghosts by Dolly Alderton. I read this as part of a blog tour that I was on with Penguin, and I do have a copy. It's just with my mum right now because I recommended it to her to read and gave her my copy to borrow, and I absolutely loved this one. It follows, I think the main character is called Nina, and she is in her early 30s and she's living in London, and basically is on her own, has been on her own for a while since she came out of a long-term relationship and wants to start dating again. And it's very kind of feminist without being men-hating, which is what I really loved about it. It kind of follows her and her friends as her friends kind of growing up and getting married and having kids and doing things that are expected of them. And then it kind of looks at that kind of thing, like what society expects from women and expects from women in their 30s, but also had a very kind of emotional side story about the relationship that Nina had with her parents, and her dad was suffering from dementia, and it made me laugh so many times, but it made me cry, and I just absolutely loved it. I loved the feminist undertones to it, and yeah, it was brilliant, and I gave that one 4.5 stars as well. I then read The Bright and the Pale by Jessica Rubinkowski, and this one was interesting. I did like it, but it just fell quite flat for me. I listened to the audiobook of this one. Isn't this fairy loot edition so pretty? Yeah, I listened to the audiobook of this one, and although I did like it, it just felt really flat. I was never kind of enthralled in the story. It didn't feel like there was that much information. I didn't feel an emotional connection to the characters, and even though they went through a lot, I just didn't really feel that emotionally connected to them, which was really sad. But I like the premise of this a lot. It follows our main character Val, and basically it is a polar fantasy in which her village was frozen by this thing called the freeze, and then stuff kind of goes from there. And yeah, I did like this one. I like that it stems from kind of Russian folklore, and I will definitely be reading the sequel. I think I might reread the physical copy of this one before the second one comes out, or when the second one comes out, because it is going to be a duology, and see how I feel about it then. But for now, I gave it 3.5 stars. I then read The 24-Hour Cafe, which was another really enjoyable adult contemporary. This is by Libby Page, who also wrote The Lido, which is one of my favourite books and was one of my favourite books of 2020. It was absolutely lovely. But this one was just really, really lovely as well. This follows two waitresses who work in a cafe in London that is a 24-hour diner, and it basically follows their relationship, which I loved. It follows a female friendship rather than like a relationship, which I really, really liked. But this also talked about all of the customers that came into the cafe over the course of the 24 hours this book is set, and their stories, and I absolutely loved it. Obviously, working in retail, I also have a lot of interactions with customers, and you obviously have conversations about their lives or wonder about their lives, and this book kind of did a deep dive into what goes on in people's lives and their own kind of problems and complications and happy things that happen in their lives as well. This made me cry, it made me laugh. I just absolutely loved it. It didn't let me down. I gave this one 4.5 stars. So I then picked up Written in the Stars by Aisha Saeed, and I read this one in a day. I really, really enjoyed it. So this follows Naila, who is basically, she has very conservative immigrant parents. She's from a Muslim family and she is dating somebody, but her parents don't want her to date. They find out that she's dating somebody, and they decide to take her to Pakistan and basically arrange a marriage for her. And although this was absolutely heartbreaking and had some really, really sad scenes, it was such an important book and it was so compelling, and I really, really enjoyed it. Feels weird to say I enjoyed it because some of the scenes were really upsetting, but it was such an important story to tell and to read, and I did really enjoy reading it, and I got through it in a day, which was quite impressive. Even though this one is quite short, I was quite proud of that, and I just didn't want to put it down. I really, really liked this one. I gave it 4 stars. So I then picked up Law by Alexandra Bracken, and this one was a little bit of a disappointment. I didn't really know what to expect from this one. Having not really enjoyed Circe very much, I didn't know whether I would not enjoy this one because of a lack of knowledge of Greek mythology, like I expected with Circe. But I thought with this one being YA, it would probably be a little bit more accessible and hold my hand a little bit more. But honestly, I was really disappointed with this one as well. So this one follows the Greek gods. It follows Law in particular, but basically there is this hunt every 7 years, but it's set in modern day New York, and it follows kind of this hunt between the gods as it happens every 7 years. But it follows this particular hunt between the gods, and I just found it confusing but also boring. And I don't know how much of that stems from my lack of knowledge of Greek mythology. I would love to reread this once I do have more knowledge, but I honestly thought I would understand this a bit better. And I'm a little disappointed because I do want to read Passenger by Alexandra Bracken, and I anticipate that I will really like that book, and I've heard really good things about it. But I don't think it's Alexandra Bracken's writing, because there are flashbacks in this book that I really enjoyed reading about and I completely understood. But the modern day stuff that was set like in present day between the gods, I just didn't really understand, and I also just found it really boring and felt like nothing was really happening for a lot of it. But yeah, I just expected more, I wanted more, but I have heard mixed reviews about this one, and I know I'm not the only one that found it like that. So yeah, it just let me down a little bit. I haven't actually rated this one yet, but I think I'm going to give it 3 or 3.5 stars. So I then read The Wind in the Willows. I just had some time at the end of the month to read an audiobook, so I actually only finished this one today, about a couple hours ago. And I thought, well, I'll pick up The Wind in the Willows because it's only it's 7 hours long, and I knew I would have that amount of time driving before the end of the month. So I said to Mark, please pick either The Wind in the Willows or Treasure Island, and he told me to read this one. And this one was so cute. I really, really like the story of this one. I think I read a version of it as a child because some of it felt really nostalgic to me, which I really liked. And the audiobook did a great job of telling this story. I listened to the one that was from Recorded Books and it was on script, and this was just so cute. There were songs in here that were actually sung in the audiobook, which I really like, because I feel like sometimes when you're listening to an audiobook, it just kind of reads out the song and doesn't give you kind of what you want from it. But this one actually sung the songs, which I really, really enjoyed, and it just gave another level to the story. But yeah, this one was so cute. The only thing I will say is I really, really didn't like Toad. But I think that's kind of the point, and he kind of goes through a redemption arc, but it also made the ending feel really rushed. So I did have mixed feelings about this one, but it is one of the better children's classics that I've read. And I'll probably give this one 3.5 or 4 stars. Again, I haven't rated this one yet, but it's around that kind of mark. And then the last one on this list is The Maze Runner, which I actually haven't finished yet. I am about halfway through this, but I'm determined to finish this tonight, and I do have some time, so hopefully I'll be able to do that. But I am actually really enjoying this so far. It is a difficult one to judge because I did watch the movie years ago, and I don't know how much I am drawing from the movie, because even though I can't remember like exactly what happens, whenever I read a scene, I do then remember it from the film. So it's a little bit hard one to judge, but I am really enjoying it so far. This follows, if you didn't know, it follows Thomas, and it's just appears in this maze basically in the middle of this thing called the Glade, and there is a wall all around them, and that is the maze, and they don't know why they're there. There's all boys in here, and they're all kind of teenage boys, and they don't know why they're there. And they have these runners that go out into the maze, which is why it's called the Maze Runner, because Thomas wants to become a runner in the maze that basically go out and try and map the maze and explore it. But yeah, it's interesting so far. I'm looking forward to reading the rest of this series. It is very fast paced. It's exactly what I needed, really escapist, and I am enjoying the writing so far. It's very, very fast, and yeah, exactly what I was looking for, really. So I anticipate that this one will probably be 4 stars, and I'm looking forward to seeing where the series goes. I did also watch the Scorch Trials years ago, but I've made a point of never watching the third one, which I can't remember what it's called. The Death Cure, and then The Kill Order is the prequel. I always get those two mixed up. I never watched The Death Cure, so I'm looking forward to reading that one, knowing I don't have any previous knowledge of it. So we will see how this series goes. So that has been my July wrap up. I hope you enjoyed it. I know a few of those thoughts were not fully formed because it is just the end of the month, but I wanted to film this now while I have time, and yeah, well, I'm just kind of finishing up my month of reading. I do have an August TBR which you can go and watch, which I played my mini golf game for, and I will link that down below so you can go and check it out. I won't mention those books now in case you want to go and check out that video. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this wrap up. I didn't read so many books, but I'm still quite proud of what I did manage to read in July. If you did enjoy watching this, then please give it a like and comment down below if you've read any of those books. Tell me what you read in July and if you had a good reading month or not. I would love to know, and subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this, and I'll see you next time. Bye.